Welcome to Issues in Education. I'm Suzanne Smith. In the next half hour, we'll discuss the latest developments in higher education happening around the state and across the country. Joining me is my co-host, the Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron. April showers may bring Mayflowers to the rest of the country, but in Florida, the end of April brings the end of the legislative session, and the start of May means it's time for various state universities to figure out what to do or not do with the money available. Joining us today to talk about these educational and political issues is Frank Brogan. He is currently the Chancellor of the State University System of Florida. He has seen both sides of the topics we're talking about today, not only as a former Lieutenant Governor of the state, but also as a former President of Florida Atlantic University. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Suzanne. Dr. Barron.
Welcome. So the session just ended. How did higher education fare?
Well, overall, as they say, or all things considered, we did rather well. If you lay that up against a backdrop of 3 to 4 years of some rather significant cuts, I think the state university system's cut was about 23%, and that's just from general revenue funding over the last 3 years. So to say that we're not staring down the double barrel of significant cuts this year, we may be able to hold harmless and hopefully in future years move forward, is a significant transition from where we've been. Having said that, the challenges are still there. We're going to have to go back in a tough fiscal year, continue to make our adjustments and our changes, continue to streamline, and continue our focus on the future. But I hope that with some of the changes we made during this legislative session, that will give us a good jump-off point for the future of Florida State University system.
Let's talk a little bit on those numbers. How much did the universities need to get, and how much did they actually get?
Well, if you stop and consider that about 6 months ago, we were looking at anywhere between a 3% overall cut and a 7% overall cut. And the fact that we ended up with, depending on how you look at the numbers, 1 to less than 1% reduction in our overall budget. That's the kind of success we've had this year. But everything costs more one year to the next. So as we all prepare our budgets for this upcoming year, and it doesn't matter whether it's our home or our universities, we're all looking at adjusting for the cost of inflation, the fact that gasoline goes up for our fleet vehicles, the fact that construction will begin to increase again based on cost and impact. All of those usual costs and expenditures that are important to a university simply climb one year to the next. That's the way of the world. So again, we are very pleased with where we ended during this legislative session. But I hope that we're going to be able to use this as a way now to begin to climb to the positive side of a budget situation. As we ask the legislature to consider higher education during this session, the one thing we continue to remind them is we are not only the producer of people with degrees, we are producers of revenue in the state university system. We can be a great change agent as it relates to the economic development of the state of Florida, not only by producing a quality-ready workforce in a knowledge-based economy, but by creating that knowledge-based economy and using research and development, job creation, just as Florida State does each and every year, as a way to help motivate our economy as a state to higher heights and greater things. We'll always be a state that's based on agriculture and a growing tourism population, but at the end of the day, if we're going to balance our economic development portfolio, we've got to tear a page from other states and truly zero in on creating a knowledge-based economy, and clearly our state university should be a catalyst for that change.
So do you think the legislature was starting to sense that the cuts were really having an impact on students and were really going to have an impact on our ability to be an economic engine? I mean, almost every economic engine needs investment.
Yes, no question about it. Dr. Barron, the members of the legislature that I worked with, and many of them I've known for years, have recognized through these difficult economic times, as other states are, not only that we must survive these reductions in our budget, we have to make conscious decisions about where we're going to go from here. And I think to a person, Republicans, Democrats, House, Senate, they're recognizing that the way to a brighter future for Florida's economy is to invest in the higher education system of this state. The analogy that I use in academic terms is North Carolina. 50 years ago, North Carolina made a conscious decision in the face of flagging tobacco and textile industries to invest in the creation of a knowledge-based economy. It was called the triangle effect. It's hard to believe it's 50 years of age. And they recognized that by investing in their universities, public and private, they could truly create a sea change in their economic development fortunes. That's become a model, perhaps not perfect, but certainly a model for the United States in terms of what higher ed can do for a state's economy. And I think this year, to your point, Dr. Barron, we saw a great deal of that in the House and Senate leadership, understanding that this could be the first step to something very special by way of economic development opportunity for Florida's future by creating that knowledge-based economy.
So this is I agree with you very much, and it's a compelling story on what that investment means for our students and their futures, what it means for the economy. So why does education always seem like it's on the chopping block year after year when everybody knows this story?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is education is so big. If you remember, in Florida, education makes up a huge part of the overall state budget. Not just the state universities, but the state college system, pre-K through 12 education. And because of its size, I think it becomes rather an easy target for many who are looking to reduce budgets. If you want to reduce a budget, go to the big parts of the budget and do that. I think our homes are similar in that regard. We look at those big ticket items and say, maybe if we just shave a little off of this area or this area, we can bring our home budget into better alignment. The problem that we've got now is, after facing 23% reduction in 3 years, how are we going to move forward? Do we simply go back and put back everything that we've lost in the last 3 years? Or do we, as many of us believe, use this also as an opportunity to build for the future? To change the way we do business, to better organize our universities and our university system to become that giant engine of economic development that this state desperately needs, and I'm hoping, as do you, wants for the future.
You used that whole premise sort of as the basis for your New Florida initiative. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were asking for and what you plan to do with it?
Sure. New Florida comes in several parts. One is funding. It's the mother's milk of this process. You need to have the funding in order to hire the professors, the researchers, purchase the equipment, put online the facilities, the backbone of our infrastructure, classrooms, laboratories that we need to do all of those things that we're sitting here talking about today. At the same time, however, I think every goal needs a destination. And in this case, what we've asked the legislature is, over the next 5 to 7 years, double the expenditure on the state university system in Florida. Double it. Create truly a committed revenue stream each year going forward, and we will guarantee you in return the number of baccalaureate degrees that should be produced for a state our size, graduate degrees. We will commit to you to increase our retention rates, our graduation rates, our time to degree issues. We'll guarantee you greater opportunity and success in the world of research and development. This state received from the legislature last year about $1.2 billion in funding for research and development from the federal government, etc. We can double that by way of output if we have the resources that we need in order to put online the finest research and development opportunities that you'll find anywhere in the country. We can add to the great faculty and staff we currently have by making this an attractive state to which to move your genius and your research enterprise. And at the end of the day, I am convinced if we organize ourselves as a system, that's the other part of New Florida, that it isn't just about money, it is also about output. It's about committing to certain standards and expectations with accountability at the end of the day that will allow the legislature, the people of the state, our students, to see the return on investment that they are gleaning from that investment. That's how we'll put together, I am convinced, a state that will find itself a great state in the future in terms of knowledge-based economy, economic development opportunity, and still maintain access for students in Florida and around the country who want it and need it.
So the New Florida initiative gained about $10 million in one-time money, relatively modest. Are you disappointed, or do you think the door just opened?
Well, we had originally asked for $100 million for New Florida money this year. Big difference. But in a year where there wasn't a great deal of recurring revenue lying around, we did get $10 million. Plus, we got a doubling of our PICO money for viewers. That is public education capital outlay. That's the money that goes for infrastructure, classrooms and laboratories. We had asked as a system for about $180 million. We received almost $400 million, allowing us to move into the queue many important projects for Florida State University and the rest of our universities around the country. You can't create the kind of thing we're talking about unless you have the infrastructure, the classrooms and the laboratories that will enable you to do that. So put it all together, coupled with the fact that we really did a great deal of work on better organizing and creating clarity and roles and responsibility of the legislature, the Board of Governors, our universities, we had a pretty fair session in terms of the gateway that New Florida, I think, represents for us for the future.
So, if you don't mind, let's just magnify that number by many tens. And here is the Board of Governors and the Chancellor making great arguments for what it will take to invest in higher education. How do you decide how to distribute this among all the universities that are out there?
Good question, and I think it comes in two ways. Let's assume that we're successful with our doubling of revenue from the state of Florida to higher education. And of course, you can't take out of that equation tuition as well. That will be a part of this equation moving forward. There will always be a base need for our universities. Florida State, for example, will always have a projected number of new students that they are going to want to take in. And that needs to be funded in the way we have perhaps funded it in the past. Many of the base functions of Florida State will remain essentially the same or grow depending on the future of the university. But at the same time, many of the additional things that Florida State University is going to want to do in the area of undergraduate or graduate or research work won't be generated through the traditional per pupil enrollment figure and approach that we've used in the past. We've seen that. We're going to need to provide Florida State, in this particular case, additional dollars to be able to grow their research programs, to be able to grow their graduate programs, enhance their areas of retention and graduation rates in the undergraduate areas. And that's where I see New Florida coming to bear. Those dollars that will be necessary to add to and supplement the great work that Florida State University does with the money that it has received in the past.
What about the competition with other universities for this money? Because not that entire amount isn't going to go to Florida State as much as Dr. Barron and a lot of other people would like that to happen.
I don't mind sharing.
But you know, how are you going to divide it among the different universities? Because everybody has a good solid claim on what they can do with it.
The one thing we know about our universities is, yes, all 11 universities provide baccalaureate degrees. That is essentially where the similarity ends. Each of our 11 universities is unique, and in some cases, most unique. We have everything in our 11 public universities from New College, which is approximately 850 students, and a high-quality honors liberal arts programming, baccalaureates only, up to and including the Florida States and the University of Florida's, which are major comprehensive research universities, and everything in between. So we know we have priorities. We've got to continue access to baccalaureate degrees, and the simple math would tell you that with many of our larger universities reaching the saturation point, we're going to have to begin to turn to some of the additional universities that have capacity and provide them the dollars to add baccalaureate degrees to those that they currently offer. At the larger universities that are at or approximately hovering around capacity, we're going to have to find ways to work with those universities to get them the dollars they need to enhance what they're already doing, undergraduate, graduate, or research. My point in answer to the question, Suzanne, is it has to be developed with each university based on their personality, their aspirations, not only institutionally but from a system standpoint, in terms of what the state needs as well. It is important to know that if we need 50,000 new baccalaureate degrees in the next 5 to 8 years, our system, unless we strategically approach it, will not be able to handle that kind of additional baccalaureate degree generation. So we have to begin a strategic plan to assure that Florida State can continue to generate baccalaureate degrees as it has, but also as a system be able to add baccalaureates where and when appropriate to do so. So it has to be done not only on an institution basis, but a system basis. It has to be right for both Florida State and the state system of universities that we have.
So this raises the very important question of how it is you treat universities with different missions. And so something near and dear to the hearts of and minds of our community is the notion of whether some universities are flagships. Mm-hmm. And there was legislation in the Senate which was designed to designate a flagship and to eventually release some of the universities or a university to be able to compete more effectively on the national stage. So how did this come about, and what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I go back to my point that all 11 universities are each in their own way unique. And each one should have the opportunity to be everything that it is capable of being, not just for that institution, but for the state system. All university missions need to align at the end of the day to make sure that we are not dealing in broad duplication of effort that is unnecessary, unwarranted, and inefficient, that we don't have voids in services because no one has taken up that particular cause, no matter how important it is, undergraduate, graduate, and research. So each differentiated mission at the end of the day per university needs to align at the end of the day on a system-wide scale to assure that the state is moving forward by institution and by system. And I am convinced that that gives rise to the ability of 11 different universities to be great universities. As a matter of fact, I would maintain that if the system is working well, each university should be able to rise at the level of its ability to achieve. I believe that having one or two nationally recognized universities, obviously on a priority side, is where we need to go. But at the end of the day, we should wake up every day in wanting and even demanding that all 11 universities are nationally recognized. But you can't do that by everybody trying to be everything to everyone. Everyone has to begin to find their personality and their niche. As we work with the university work plans, Dr. Barron, over the course of the summer, and then obviously even longer than that, it's about Florida State telling us this is what we bring to the table. These are our aspirational goals for Florida State University in undergrad and graduate and research. And then as a part of the system, working to help Florida State become nationally and internationally recognized for those individual niche areas, and then obviously as a great university in its entirety.
Thank you very much. We've been talking with Frank Brogan, Chancellor of the State University System of Florida. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dr. Barron and I will talk one-on-one about more issues in education.
This is not a university presidency. This is the opportunity to take the Florida State University to the next level. We're attracting a student body that can go off and do great things. I like to get the job done. That's really what I'm about.
For 150 years, the values of Florida State University remain unwavering. Strength, the capacity for endurance. Skill, using one's knowledge creatively. Character, moral excellence, and social responsibility. Together, these values shape leaders who advance our state, our nation, and our world. Strength, skill, character. Florida State University.
Welcome back. I'm Suzanne Smith, sitting with Dr. Eric Barron, the president of the Florida State University. Dr. Barron, we've been talking about how universities in general in the state of Florida handled the legislative session. How did Florida State fare in the budget?
Well, basically, we lost about $2.1 million in our base budget. These are the dollars that recur year after year. And then in temporary dollars, we regained much of that. So for the year, it's kind of a wash. But you always worry when you lose something that's recurring dollars. But then you compare 2.1 to the fact that we've lost $82 million over the last 3 years, and you feel like cheering even though you lost money.
Well, you probably haven't worked out the details on how the money is all going to be divided up yet, but first, do you have an idea of what the budget cuts are going to be and how soon you'll know what they're going to be?
My personal feeling is we've cut enough. We've had a significant impact on the faculty and on the staff. We've lost some programs. This is already a very efficient, effective university, and I don't believe there's really room to do more without doing harm. So I think this is a case where that we can recoup these dollars through time with tuition increases that are scheduled. It would just take us time to catch up.
So how soon will tuition increases be seen, from previous scheduled ones or in general?
So the legislature just enabled us to increase tuition by 8%. Those are dollars which can be distributed across any program. And then in addition to that, we can increase it an additional 7% because the legislature has said that we can make increases of 15% until we catch up with the national average for public universities. Right now, we're at the bottom. And each percent gets us about $1.2 million into our base budget. But of course, we're coming out of a deficit of $82 million. It's going to take a while to catch up.
At the same time, you've also just broken ground on a new building in Innovation Park for the Aero-Propulsion, Mechatronics and Energy Building. I think I said that correctly. For the layman, what are these buildings going to be used for? Okay,
so a couple of the things that will be used for is enhanced absorption of solar energy so that we can do a better job of doing solar power. And the idea is to have very high performance materials that are particularly good at absorbing solar energy. So that's one example. Huge benefit to the state and to the nation. Another area is in robotics. So you can imagine, for example, very small robots that are able to fly and do reconnaissance. And so we're experimenting with all sorts of different applications with small robots. Those are the types of things that will be in that building.
Now, FSU is also getting involved with the recent the oil spill with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in the Gulf. What exactly is Florida State right now in the early stages of it working on?
Okay, so we have a number of experts that can contribute to this area. One is to use satellite information to understand actually the thickness of the oil on the water, and combine that with the area of the oil, we can estimate how fast the oil is coming out of the damaged well. And so right now our estimates are above what we're seeing as estimates from the company or from the federal government. The other thing about it is that we have a number of scientists that are exceptionally good on the weather forecasting side of things and on the nature of the circulation in the Gulf. So they're working diligently to come up with new information on where the oil spill may land.
And they're going to help provide this to the people who are involved with cleanup?
So a task force has been created within the university. We've partnered with other universities within the state university system and Miami. And one thing that will happen is in the next couple of days, attached to our main web page will be a web page focused entirely on the results of this task force. So just to give you an idea, you'll be able to click on a file. It will show you the current directions at that particular moment, and superimposed on it will be the oil field, and you'll see its progress through time.
April brought the Origins Science Lectures back to Florida State University. How successful were these lectures this year?
You know, they were wonderful. They were very well attended. Of course, these are top-notch people in the field, so you're really bringing exceptional individuals to our city, both for the benefit of the city and for our faculty, students, and university community. And I managed to attend 3 of the lectures, which I thought wasn't going to be possible with my schedule, and they were just great.
Does it look like it's going to return next year?
I certainly hope so.
Are you hoping that the science lectures will become as big as 7 days of opening nights are for the arts in the community?
I think any time you have a university that can showcase the arts and ensure that you're bringing very talented people from across the world to our community, and you can showcase the sciences and all the ramifications and bring those talented people to the community, you've got a good thing going.
You experienced your first graduation ceremonies as president the weekend of April 30th, May 1st, and 2nd with the Panama City campus. So what did you think?
Well, you know, these days I think they teach small children math by doing very tangible things with little blocks so that you can understand. I have now an intimate knowledge of what the number 4,000 is, because that's the number of hands that I shook during the weekend.
How do you feel your first semester as president has gone?
You know, 95% of the time I would say that I was ecstatic. The more I learn about the university, the better I feel about it, the more I realize what a talented faculty we have, what great things our students are doing. All of these things are wonderful. There is that 5% of worrying through the budget and worrying through a lot of other issues that is very stressful. You got a great faculty and a great student body. It can beat out any stress that I know of.
Now that the first semester is over, what do you plan on focusing on this summer and in the upcoming year?
I actually have a contractual obligation to tell the Board of Trustees what I plan to do for the year. And so in very short order, I need to do that by July. In very short order, my plans for the strategic thinking of the university, how that will couple with fundraising, and how that will couple with our public relations efforts will be something that I will be sending to the Board of Trustees and will be a public document.
Thank you very much, President Barron. That's our time for now. Please join us again next month for more Issues in Education. You can watch the premiere episode of Issues in Education the first Wednesday of every month at 7:30 p.m. That means you can see the next new episode on Wednesday, June 2nd on WFSU TV. Join us as we discuss the latest developments in higher education happening around the state and across the country. If you have questions that you would like us to address on this program, you can email us at issues@wfsu.org. Again, that's issues@wfsu.org. If you would like to see past episodes of Issues in Education, head to the President's website at president.fsu.edu. I'm Suzanne Smith with the Florida State University President, Dr. Eric Barron, for Issues in Education. We'll see you next time.